The Russian army has deployed a strange improvised armored railway platform in occupied Donetsk Oblast, but Ukrainian forces were quick to take it out. A Ukrainian drone strike by the 152nd Jaeger Brigade destroyed the vehicle, sparking questions about what it was in the first place, Defense Express says. One of the most unexpected discoveries of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine has been its renewed use of armored trains for battlefield logistics, a tactic that feels both outdated and surreal in modern warfare. Russian troops have actively relied on railway logistics in the occupied territories of eastern Ukraine, including the use of armored trains. But now, footage shows something even stranger. An unidentified armored rail vehicle struck by a Ukrainian drone, Defense Express says. The destroyed target doesn't resemble a regular freight or shunting locomotive. Its chassis and wheel set suggest it was not self-propelled. That's why the drone strike specifically targeted the bottom of the rail car, where vital components like the undercarriage or fuel systems are located. Hitting this section effectively immobilizes any rail-based platform. Recall, desperately low on armored vehicles and under increasing pressure in eastern Ukraine, Russian commanders have grown desperate. They've mobilized entire battalions of motorcycle troops. They've sent the walking wounded into battle on crutches. And now they've up-armored a train and deployed it as a crude, rail-borne battlefield transport. Despite their perceived obsolescence by many military forces worldwide, Russia continues to use armored trains for their combination of mobility, protection, and logistical capabilities. In Ukraine, as reported several times by the Army Recognition editorial team, these trains are used to secure extensive railway networks and support military operations in contested areas. These trains can transport troops, equipment, and supplies through contested areas while providing a fortified platform for command and control operations. They are equipped with various weapon systems, including anti-aircraft guns and artillery, which allow them to support ground operations and defend against aerial and ground threats. Their armored nature provides a high level of protection against small arms fire and shrapnel, making them resilient in hostile environments. Moreover, the use of armored trains leverages existing rail infrastructure, which is extensive in Ukraine and the surrounding regions. Railways can facilitate the rapid movement of large quantities of military supplies and personnel across vast distances, essential for sustaining prolonged operations. This logistical advantage is significant in the context of Russia's military strategy, which often involves securing and holding large territories. Thus, while they may seem anachronistic, armored trains remain a practical asset in Russia's military toolkit. Russian troops are gradually retreating from the western outskirts of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region, according to Ukraine's operational strategic group Khortytsia. The development follows unsuccessful attempts by Russian forces to cut off a key supply route from Pavlograd in the Dnipropetrovsk region to Pokrovsk. Speaking on national television, group spokesperson Viktor Trehubov stated that the Russian military had been attempting to advance in the area since late February or early March, aiming to sever logistical lines. However, their offensive failed after Ukrainian forces regained control of the village of Kotlin, which Trehubov described as a turning point. Russian forces are now slowly withdrawing from the western outskirts toward the southern part of the city where their offensive originally began, he said. Trehubov also addressed the status of combat operations during the Easter period. He noted a temporary reduction in fighting intensity, with the number of clashes decreasing 2- to 3-fold. However, he cautioned against interpreting this as a ceasefire. If there were around 80 engagements and now there are 30, this looks more like a pause for regrouping rather than a genuine de-escalation, he said. Russian forces continue to rotate units and amass troops, particularly in the Kupiansk and Kharkiv directions. According to the Ukrainian military, Russian activity near Pokrovsk remains among the most intense on the Eastern Front, despite the tactical setbacks. Earlier, Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky reported that Ukrainian forces had liberated 16 square kilometers near Pokrovsk, including areas around Udachne, Kotlin, and Shevchenko. He noted that troops were repelling up to 30 Russian assaults daily in this direction as Moscow continues its attempts to advance toward the administrative borders of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. RBC Ukraine recently reported that Russian troops in the Pokrovsk direction are being forced to retreat because they have suffered significant losses. The Khortytsia Operational Strategic Group noted that an entire unit of motorcycles was even sent into an assault, and it was completely destroyed. Despite Russian troops' continued efforts to capture Pokrovsk, recent attempts have been marked by significant losses for the aggressor. According to Trehubov, the Russians are not succeeding in this direction. Despite the significant resources, they are concentrating on the assaults. Pokrovsk remains the most intense direction, and an interesting element of the situation is that, despite the fact that the Russians are making the most effort, it is here that they are having the least success, said Trehubov.